killing masses of innocent enemies, eating like an insatiable glutton, fighting everyone who betrays him without a care. There's only one intrepid creature who matches all these statements, and it's the pink little fluffball that is named Kirby. In his adventures through countless of obstacles and burdens, he faced off all sorts of opponents in grandiose battles, not only for the good of Dreamland or the whole universe, but a lovely looking strawberry shortcake as well. It doesn't matter who or what stands in his way, with the ability to suck in everything that fits into his mouth, the potential for powerful copy abilities is endless. But it's not only Kirby who battles against countless of foes without hesitation or a brain, especially the recent games leaned more towards all the companions he met on his journey and gave them a chance to show their merits apart from their debut titles. This is not limited to the veterans of the series, like Meta Knight or King DDD, but more regular characters like Bonkers or Sir Kibble too. It doesn't matter if you're a main character, antagonist or a Goomba with a hat, everyone can get their time to shine under the right conditions and proper crossover. In case you haven't noticed, everything I just described wasn't a summary of modern Kirby games. Well, not only. Look at all these statements individually and you have the perfect template for a Musou title, or more generally speaking, a Warriors game. While this kind of gameplay exists for the longest time, Nintendo fans got to know this action-packed franchise in the course of the first Hyrule Warriors, which released back for the Wii U and was republished several times with more additions. The unexpected but surprisingly harmonic echo of Hyrule's battlefield resulted in another successor that took place before Breath of the Wild and used the opportunity to tell a parallel path of the events presented in the original. What made this mix between Zelda and Warriors so fantastic was the option to finally stray away from the main series and emphasize aspects of the franchise that have no place in the main games. I mainly speak of all the iconic characters which are often told to be these legendary fighters that have no chance to prove their power apart from cutscenes and optional dialogues. By the point the first Hyrule Warriors released, Majora's Mask was one of the only games that let you play as a Goron or Zora, giving you a small taste of these creatures' capabilities and living out their talents on the Hyrule battlefield. Because of Hyrule Warriors' success, it was only a matter of time until Nintendo would taste blood and expand the idea of a crossover title with Warriors and other established Nintendo IPs. Fire Emblem is another natural fit, and with Three Hopes being the most recent title, they follow Age of Calamity's traces once again. But what makes a franchise suitable to be a Musou game? Nowadays it became quite common to simply fantasize every possible IP into this style of gameplay, even if it doesn't really sound logical. In a sense, this may also be the magic behind this idea, since the imagination of Mario slaughtering through hundreds of Goombas is kinda amusing. But for the sake of basic consistency, we are going to limit ourselves to some essential rules. First and foremost, the universe of a series defines its potential. What I mean with universe is the general fictitious totality of everything that creates a believable world. For a Warriors game, the three most important categories are characters, gameplay, and setting. The playable characters are arguably the most important pillar because this is the appeal of Warriors crossover after all. If you want to enjoy the thrill of slashing through masses of enemies, you can buy every Musou game, but fighting with Zant against Zelda is only something you can experience in such a crossover. If a franchise does not offer a spectrum of different, interesting, visually unique characters, the appeal of commanding an army falls short. Take Pikmin for instance. I know it's a weird example, but all the main characters have extremely similar designs, thanks to their position of being space travelers, and due to that, it wouldn't feel that different to either play with Olimar or Louie. On top of that, it's not like they have special abilities in the games, and even though the developers could add some more differences between them, I don't think the purpose of a Warriors game lies in making things up. Of course, sometimes it's necessary to adjust specific details or use the imagination, but I would argue that even the most ridiculous character like Tingle still utilizes the foundations of the respective games and doesn't change the initial character. That is not to say that something like Pikmin Warriors would not work. If the developers have proved one thing, then it's their unbelievable creativity when it comes to translating a franchise into a Musou battlefield. But I suppose suppose you understand my point. The same goes for enemy variety. Zelda and many other Nintendo IPs are in the lucky position to often present standard foes that can be replicated without coming across as strange. In Mario games, you're already coming across the same Goombas again and again, which should make it easy to simply multiply them. Furthermore, bosses follow a similar pattern and are at least as necessary as playable characters. No one wants to fight opponents in these games you have never seen before, at least to some extent, because just like playable characters, these bosses can flourish thanks to the action-packed gameplay. A slower-paced series like second-dimensional Mario games would suddenly benefit from the increased speed, and foes like the Koopa Links wouldn't be so boring after all maybe. The same goes for the setting where each slaughter can take place in. In the best case, an IP offers a great variety of dissimilar environments, and giving the creators the option to celebrate as many games with one respective battlefield as possible. The first Hyrule Warriors did this and let you fight in all sorts of places from different Zelda games. Naturally, enemies can be adjusted to whatever kind of location you're currently in, having the perfect excuse to fight a multitude of well-known henchmen. Because we are visiting places normally not connected, the stories can go into a ridiculous direction, just like with the first Hyrule Warriors. As you have probably noticed, I didn't mention the narrative as one of the main pillars because it's simply unnecessary. Not unnecessary in terms of being there at all, but actually telling a good story. We have clarified that the main appeal is the fan service, and everything should serve the purpose of following this core ideology. Who cares if it makes sense that certain characters or words interact without any logical reason? If there's a time and moment to set up an outlandish situation like that, then it's in a Warriors game. Last comes the gameplay, which seems contradicting initially. Musou titles are not known for their elaborated gameplay and solely focus on slashing through countless enemies in a repetitive fashion. Simply put, it's a brain-dead, monotonous, yet extremely enjoyable gameplay style with the right mindset, but having more depth than you think. While the regular story modes often do not require any problem-solving skills, optional, difficult side missions depict the polar opposite. Although I have only played the original Hyrule Warriors extensively, I can still safely say how many missions required me to keep the map in sight. See how the circumstances of the battlefield change and how I react. A Warriors game can be surprisingly strategic, which I can imagine is only amplified in the Fire Emblem counterparts. A way to underline the depth are franchise-specific mannerisms like Zelda's dungeon items or Fire Emblem's weapon variety. It helps to make a title particularly special among all these crossovers, without giving you the feeling of playing a Hyrule Warriors with a Fire Emblem skin, with the basic rules of what makes a fitting crossover Musou title interesting being set. Why is the Kirby series a natural fit for such an endeavor? The most obvious aspect may be the characters. Even for casual players, Kirby is known for its variety of unique and often playable figures among many games. What started rather reserved back in the day escalated to a Super Smash Bros. Style gathering of basically every character with a name being playable and star allies. This alone justifies a Warriors title more than enough, since you would get an amazing change of distinct looking characters with special gameplay styles. There's so many characters in fact that they couldn't possibly even implement all of the main figures in the first place, and most likely rely on the modern representatives. Regardless, there's still the option to simply combine some of them, as Star Allies did the very same with characters like the Animal Buddies or Ribbon and Adeline, but the most interesting playable one would be Kirby himself. His trademark ability of copying the enemy's skills already lends itself to all sorts of attractive scenarios in his own games, but could truly flourish on the Musou battlefield. Obviously, it would require some workaround and imagination, since it depends how they treat copy abilities. In Warriors games, the controls for every character are often basically the same, and the moveset is generally linked to a weapon. Link plays completely different with another weapon than his master sword, and Kirby would be pretty much the same. Sword, Fire or Ice Kirby could share some basic common moves, but for the most part they would play out very differently, making Kirby the protagonist, rightfully so the most complex playable character of Kirby Warriors. In addition, they can add charm to his movement by implementing the Warp Star when he starts his running animation, or use one of the main gimmicks like Hypernova for his special attacks. The possibilities for Kirby himself are endless, even more endless than with any other Nintendo Warriors game. Naturally, I will not go through every single major character. It's a given they would implement characters like King Dedede, Meta Knight, Head Goomba, Margolor, and many more. As a matter of fact, we cannot forget about some sleeper picks, and it would be nice to see some playable antagonists like Dark Matter, Queen Sectonia, or many other of them. Not to mention of all the interesting locations we can go through. Even though it's always special to visit past places in a code of a battlefield, Kirby is unique in that regard. Unlike with Zelda, most Kirby settings are in 2D because most Kirby games are in 2D. Getting reimagined locations of Dreamland in open 3-dimensional places would benefit the franchise so much, and since most Kirby games are often not even 60 FPS, a shaky Kirby Warriors would be even more fitting, right? Of course, you can go more all out and set a battlefield around the halberd in the sky, which is attacked and needs to be defended. They could bring back the banter of the crew from Superstar, or seeing Dynablade finally in 3D. And this is what I'm talking about when speaking of making Easter eggs, offering the right kind of fan service. The reimagined Battle of Halberd would be a direct reference to Superstar, without coming across as charmless fan service, because a war in the sky is spectacular enough on its own. Or what about King Dedede's castle? All these places we still only got a glimpse of would eventually get the chance to shine. The main and probably most plain reason, however, why Kirby fits so much into the Musou style is simply because Kirby is already a warrior series on its own. Think of it. What is Kirby doing in a game when running through a level? Swallowing and destroying absolutely anything on his way. The regular enemy amount in a Kirby level is higher than in most platformers. With the original Kirby's Dreamland for the Game Boy having so many, it's already unbelievable how they fit that number into the little handheld. Also, imagine all the crazy finals translated into an even more insane battlefield. The possibilities are endless in regards how wacky the franchise already is. Even the story would favor a Warriors title. Counting out the option of using an already existing game as a basis, like Age of Calamity, there aren't too many problems creating a story premise. Kirby already makes use of dimensions, different worlds, and all sorts of flexible story devices, and they could simply put all these universes together, creating a chaotic premise. Just make up a new antagonist who has the ability to mash these settings and past Kirby games together, and you get the perfect setup for the most insane Kirby game and even Warriors title ever. As you can see, the options for a Kirby Warriors game are infinite. Most likely, I only scratched the surface of the potential, and there are probably many other people with way better ideas I have presented. You can also keep in mind that this project would be outsourced to another studio, since the Musou titles are not directly made by Nintendo. They are only overlooking the project, and the Kirby team could still focus on their main projects while having this special spin-off in their backhand. At the end of the day, you can always spin your favorite franchise around a Warriors entry, and it's hopefully a matter of time until Kirby unleashes his desire to destroy from the main series to a possible spin-off. After all, Nintendo Musou crossovers are just fanfictions with a budget.